A mechanical short squeeze in Korea's tech sector gives us a 12-hour lead signal for Nvidia and the Nasdaq, but the entire play pivots on the upcoming US CPI data.
And there it is, signal activation confirmed. The Korean market just closed with a massive plus 5.35% surge. And this wasn't broad-based. It was a targeted injection of 1.5 trillion won straight into the electric and electronic sector.
So let's be clear, this isn't just some regional rally that you can ignore. No, this is a direct vector, a 12-hour lead signal straight into the US tech session. And we're going to break down exactly how this works. All right, let's get into the mechanics here, because understanding the why behind a move this big, well, that's everything. So the big question we have to answer right now is this. Is this rally built on solid rock, or is it just sand? Is this real organic buying, or just a temporary, purely mechanical event? And when you follow the money, the evidence trail doesn't point to new investors rushing in. No, it points to something else entirely, the forced surrender of a whole lot of bearish bets. Okay, now look at this, because this is where it gets really interesting. This is the core contradiction. You've got Samsung with 311.5 billion won in short volume, SK Hynix with 82.4 billion, and yet their prices absolutely exploded higher. See, that's not new people shorting the stock, that's old bears being forced to cover, forced to buy back their shares at a massive loss. That is our central clue.
And these two companies, these two strategic tech partners, Samsung and SK Hynix, they became the epicenter, the battlefield for this massive forced liquidation. Their rally isn't just a rally, it's the leading indicator for us.
So just to be crystal clear, this is not a vote of confidence in the market. It's a survival run. It's bears who were caught completely offside. What happened? Yesterday's sudden drop in oil prices flipped the switch to risk on, and that put insane pressure on their bearish tech positions. They aren't buying because they see a bright future. They're buying because they have to stop the bleeding. And this illustrates the mechanism perfectly. This whole rally, it's running on borrowed energy. It's a feedback loop where forced buying just creates more forced buying. It's powerful, but it's not organic. Okay, so now let's bridge the gap. How do we take this signal from SEOUL and translate it into a direct sentiment read for the US? Let's build an actionable plan. Here's the vector. That forced buying pressure in Korea's high-bandwidth memory supply chain that's now a direct liquidity signal for Nvidia, for Micron, and for the whole Nasdaq 100. The correlation here is tight. The link between SK Hynix and Nvidia has a correlation coefficient of 0.85, and it is screaming strong open. But here's the problem. We have a clear signal conflict. The supply chain vector is screaming bull, but there's a high-impact macro event, the CPI data, on a direct collision course. So, divergence detected. You've got this massive flow of capital from Asia about to slam right into the wall of the US CPI report. We have to be prepared for that collision. And this brings us to the single most important rule for today's session. Do not trade the headline, you trade the supply chain. The noise is going to be all about the CPI number, but the real signal is what we just uncovered. Here is the battle plan. All right, let's get tactical. The market is going to pivot on a few very specific price levels. I need you to watch these NASDAQ 100 thresholds with absolute discipline. First level, invalidation. That's 24,967. This is yesterday's close. If the NASDAQ can't hold this level after the CPI print, our bullish case from Asia is fractured. It's done. Next, critical support. Our hard stop is 24,200. That was yesterday's low. If we breach that level, it means the macro fear from CPI has completely steamrolled our supply chain signal. That's a full reversal. You exit all tactical long tech positions, no questions asked. Now for the upside. If, and only if, our invalidation pivot at 24,967 holds, we maintain our long bias. The primary upside target, powered by that Korean squeeze, is 25,200. Okay, final check before we execute. Here's your final confirmation. You need to watch the pre-market volume on Nvidia like a hawk. If we see heavy volume aligning with our bull case, the signal is confirmed. But if that volume is weak or it's contradictory, you invalidate the entire setup. You have to remember, this is borrowed energy. It needs real buyers to show up to sustain the trend. A rally that just consumes its own fuel is going to run right off a supply cliff. So this is what it all comes down to. The short squeeze in Seoul kicked the door open. The question now is, will U.S. long money actually walk through it? Because this mechanical rally, it's just the start. It's not the end of a new trend.
Log the result 0630 Eastern Standard Time. No exceptions. If you want the Asia close before New York opens, you know what to do. Subscribe and be here.